There's a paradox that, if you pay attention long enough, becomes impossible to ignore. Some people once had a lot of money in their hands, yet a few years later, they are right back where they started. Meanwhile, others begin with nothing, no capital, no connections, no obvious advantages, and over time, they slowly rise, become stable, and grow increasingly wealthy. If money were truly the solution to poverty, why does it disappear once it arrives? And if poverty were only a matter of circumstances, why do people in the same situation end up with completely different outcomes? We are often taught that the way out of poverty is simple: make more money. But very few people stop to ask the deeper question: what actually determines how someone keeps money, uses money, and creates money in the first place? The truth is, money doesn't vanish on its own. It simply flows in the direction of the mindset controlling it. When the mindset doesn't change, no amount of money ever stays for long. It becomes nothing more than a temporary visitor. You may genuinely be short on money right now, but lacking money is not a life sentence. What is far more dangerous is lacking a new way of thinking, a different perspective on life, on opportunity, on risk, and on your own value. Because in most cases, poverty does not begin with an empty wallet. It begins with invisible limits in the mind, quiet beliefs whispering, "I can't," "this isn't for me," or "this is just how I was born." And if you are brave enough to look at this honestly, you will arrive at an uncomfortable but necessary truth. Most people stay poor not because they don't have money, but because they were never taught or never dared to think like someone who knows how to create it. When people talk about being poor, most immediately think of a number in a bank account, a monthly income, or the moment they reach the end of the month with nothing left in their wallet. But that is only the surface. Poverty at a deeper level is not merely a financial condition, it is a mindset, a way of seeing life, money, and oneself that has been formed, repeated, and reinforced over many years. Financial circumstances can change very quickly. Today you may have nothing, and tomorrow, with one opportunity, one contract, or one right decision, the numbers can look completely different. A mindset, however, does not change that fast. It is like an invisible pair of glasses you wear every day, so long that you forget they're even there. Eventually, you start believing the world truly looks the way you see it through those lenses. And if those lenses are tinted with fear, scarcity, and doubt, then even when money appears, you will still look at it with anxiety. Someone who is temporarily short on money may think, "I don't have it right now, but I'll find a way to learn, work, and try." Someone who is poor in mindset thinks, "I don't have it, and I probably never will." These two thoughts sound similar, but they lead to completely different lives. Being short on money is a phase. Being poor in mindset is a cycle. When poverty becomes a mindset, it affects far more than how you spend money. It shapes how you make decisions, how you respond to opportunities, and how you face risk. You don't try because you're afraid of losing. You don't invest because you're afraid of being wrong. You don't think big because you're afraid of being laughed at. And so you choose safety, not because it is better, but because it is familiar. What matters here is that this mindset is rarely something you consciously choose. It is built from what you hear as a child, from the environment you grow up in, from seemingly harmless phrases repeated again and again. "This is just how our family is. That's not for people like us. Stability is what matters most." Over time, you don't just believe that you are poor, you begin to believe that you belong there. That is the moment poverty stops being an external condition and becomes an internal identity. When someone identifies with scarcity, they unconsciously make choices that keep them exactly where they are. Not because they are lazy or incapable, but because their mindset has been programmed for survival in lack, not for growth in abundance. Understanding this is the first and most important step, because you cannot escape a problem you believe exists only outside of you. When you realize that poverty is a mindset, not just the amount of money you have. You begin to see the door that truly needs to be opened, not in your wallet, but in the way you think. A poor mindset does not show up with a clear label that makes it easy to recognize. It slips quietly into everyday thoughts, into habits and reflexes so familiar that you mistake them for personality, for being cautious, or even for being smart. But if you observe closely enough, you will notice patterns that repeat, and those very patterns are silently keeping many people trapped in poverty no matter how hard they work. One of the most common signs of a poor mindset is constantly asking, "Is this safe?" before every opportunity. Not safety in the sense of intelligent risk assessment, but safety as a way to avoid change. When faced with a learning opportunity, they worry about wasting time. When a new way to make money appears, they fear being scammed. When a different path presents itself, they fear being wrong. And because of that fear, they do nothing. They choose to stay still, then comfort themselves by believing that staying still is wiser than taking a risk. But in reality, not making a decision is still a decision, and it is usually the decision to keep things exactly the same. Another sign is seeing risk everywhere but opportunity nowhere. When others talk about potential, the poor mindset immediately thinks about what could be lost. When others discuss investing, they think about losing money. When others talk about change, they think about failure. Their brain has been trained to search for danger first, because for a long time, survival mattered more than growth. The problem is that the modern world does not reward those who only avoid risk. It rewards those who know how to manage risk in order to move forward. A deeper sign, one that few people are willing to admit, is the fear of being wrong and the fear of losing face. People with a poor mindset often don't fear failure because of money, but because it threatens their sense of worth. They are afraid of being judged, of being compared, of others seeing them try and fall short. So they choose to not try at all. They keep themselves in familiar territory where no one laughs, but where no real breakthrough ever happens. A poor mindset also reveals itself in the belief that wealth is something distant, even suspicious. They assume rich people succeed because of luck, connections, or tricks, and by doing so, they unconsciously remove themselves from the game. If wealth is seen as dirty or not meant for people like me, then pursuing it creates guilt or a sense of unworthiness. This is a powerful barrier, because you will never give your full effort to achieve something you believe does not belong to you. Finally, another clear sign is a constant focus on what is missing instead of what can be created. People with a poor mindset often say, "I don't have capital, I don't have time, I don't have connections, I don't have talent." They list their shortages like a sentence instead of seeing them as a starting point. Meanwhile, someone with a growth-oriented mindset asks, "Given what I have right now, where can I start?" The difference is not in circumstances, but in the questions being asked. These signs do not mean you are incapable. They simply show that you have lived too long in an environment where scarcity feels normal. And the most dangerous thing about a poor mindset is not that it keeps you short on money, but that it convinces you that you have no other choice. The moment you begin to recognize these patterns in your own thinking is also the moment you are standing at the first door out of them. Many people believe that if you simply give poor people enough money, their lives will change. But reality has repeated the same lesson again and again. The money comes, and then it goes. Not because they don't know how to spend money, but because money cannot fix a mindset that has been conditioned to live in scarcity. When someone has never developed the mindset to manage and create money, money is not a tool, it is an emotion. It carries excitement, compensation, and fear all at once. That is why the first reaction to having money is rarely long-term thinking, but rather the release of pressure that has been building for years. They spend to feel equal to others, to feel temporarily secure, or to prove that they have value too. In this case, money is not used to build a future, but to soothe the past. Another reason is that many poor people lack a system for keeping money. There is no plan, no allocation, no clear purpose for each dollar. When money is not placed into a structure, it naturally finds a way to flow out. And when it is gone, the feeling of helplessness returns, often stronger than before, because this time it comes with disappointment. I had a chance, and I still couldn't hold on to it. On a deeper level, many people lack the vision to turn money into leverage. For them, money is something to spend, not something to multiply. They are not accustomed to thinking about investing in skills, knowledge, relationships, or assets that can generate future income. Not because they are unintelligent, but because they have never been exposed to that way of thinking. Without vision, even large amounts of money only serve the present. They never build tomorrow. One crucial factor that is often overlooked is the absence of discipline. Financial discipline does not come from high income, it comes from mental clarity. When someone has not learned how to delay gratification, money becomes the easiest thing to lose. Each small decision feels reasonable in the moment, but added together, they destroy any chance of accumulation. Money is rarely lost because of one big mistake, but because of hundreds of small, uncontrolled choices. And finally, there is a truth that is very hard to accept. Money does not stay long with those who feel unworthy of it. Many people carry a deep belief that they are not meant to have much money. When money arrives, they unconsciously push it away through overspending, rushed decisions, or helping others to the point of neglecting themselves. Not because they are bad people, but because, at a subconscious level, they are trying to return everything to what feels familiar. That is why giving money to poor people does not make them rich if their mindset remains unchanged. Money cannot teach you how to think. It only amplifies the way you already think. If scarcity exists inside, money will amplify that scarcity. And when the money leaves, it leaves behind a lesson few are willing to face. If you want to change the outcome, you cannot just change the amount of money. You must change the person holding it. The greatest difference between a rich mindset and a poor mindset is not the amount of money someone has, but how they think when facing the exact same situation. Two people can look at the same opportunity, the same risk, and the same starting point, yet make completely opposite choices. And it is those small, repeated choices over time that create a massive gap. People with a poor mindset tend to use money to resolve emotions before thinking about the future. When they have money, the first questions in their mind are, "What should I buy right now?" or "What have I been missing all this time?" Money becomes a reward, a form of compensation for years of struggle. In contrast, someone with a rich mindset asks a different question. What can this money help me create next? To them, money is a tool, not a destination. It is placed into things that can grow: skills, systems, assets, or long-term relationships. Another key difference lies in how they view time. A poor mindset is often trapped in the present. Decisions are driven by immediate pressure, bills, expenses, urgent needs. This pushes people toward short-term gains, even when they know those gains may cause long-term damage. A rich mindset, on the other hand, is willing to struggle today in exchange for freedom tomorrow. They accept moving slowly, learning longer, and doing work that does not pay immediately, because they are investing in a future that extends far beyond the next few months or years. An equally important difference is how these two mindsets deal with problems. A poor mindset tends to avoid them. When difficulties arise, people look for reasons to stop: circumstances, the market, other people, fate, not necessarily because they want to blame, but because they do not yet believe they have the ability to solve the problem. A rich mindset sees problems as part of the game. They ask, "What is this problem teaching me?" Or, "If I get through this, where will I become stronger?" To them, every obstacle is a lesson, not a dead end. The difference is also clear in their relationship with risk. People with a poor mindset fear risk because they lack a buffer, both financially and psychologically. They try to avoid risk at all costs. The paradox is, avoiding all risk often becomes the greatest risk of all. People with a rich mindset don't accept risk blindly, but they understand that growth does not exist without risk. Instead of asking, "Is there risk?" they ask, "How can I make this risk smaller and more manageable?" Finally, the most fundamental difference lies in how each person sees themselves. A poor mindset often defines identity by what is lacking. People believe their abilities are fixed and that certain doors were never meant to open for them. A rich mindset believes in learning and expansion. They do not see themselves as not enough, but as in the process of becoming better. That belief gives them the courage to step forward, to try, to fail, and to try again. For this reason, wealth or poverty does not begin with circumstances, it begins with the mindset you choose to cultivate every day. When mindset changes, actions change. When actions change long enough, results are forced to change as well. And that is why the greatest gap between a rich mindset and a poor mindset is not found in bank accounts, but in the way people think before they make each decision. Very few people are born choosing a poor mindset. Most of us simply inherit a way of thinking that existed long before we were old enough to question it. And the first place where that mindset begins to be programmed is not somewhere far away, it's right at home, within the family. Family is the first environment where a child learns how to see the world, not through long lectures, but through everyday phrases, simple, realistic statements repeated day after day. "We don't have the means. That's too expensive. Don't even think about it. Just focus on studying, then get a stable job." These words are not spoken with bad intentions. On the contrary, they often come from love and a desire to protect children from risk. But over time, that protection quietly builds invisible walls inside a child's mind. Growing up in a household where money is always tight and worries are constant, the brain learns to prioritize survival over growth. Children do not learn that money is a tool, they learn that money is a source of stress. They do not learn that opportunities can be created. They learn that opportunities are rare and out of reach. And gradually, they do not just learn to save money, they learn to save their dreams as well. There is a very common belief passed down from generation to generation: just live a modest life and stay safe. In that context, playing it safe is seen as a virtue. But what is the hidden cost? It is the fear of going beyond familiar limits. It is pulling back before the game even begins. It's accepting a life that is merely enough. Not because more is wanted, but because losing what little one has feels too dangerous. What is often overlooked is that families pass on mindsets not only through words, but through behavior. When parents fear change, fear investing, fear trying something new, children learn that safety is the highest value. When adults complain about money but never seek ways to improve their situation, children learn that money is beyond their control. And when these patterns repeat long enough, they become normal, to the point where very few people even consider that life could be lived differently. But family is not the only place where a poor mindset is programmed. As a child grows and steps outside the front door, the next institution that continues to reinforce and legitimize those beliefs is the school system. There, the seeds planted at home are rarely challenged. Instead, they are often framed into a proper path, safe, respectable, and widely accepted. And from this point on, a poor mindset is no longer just the story of one household. It becomes part of the larger educational system we grow up in. When entering school, many people believe it will be a place that expands thinking, a place where children learn to understand the world and discover their own path. But in reality, for many, school becomes a place that standardizes what was already programmed at home, especially the mindset of safety and the fear of being wrong. From the very early years, children are taught that there are right answers and wrong answers, and their job is to find the correct one as quickly as possible. Mistakes are not encouraged. Being wrong often comes with low grades, criticism, and a sense of embarrassment. Over time, students stop learning to understand and start learning to avoid mistakes. And once the fear of being wrong takes root, it does not stay in the classroom. It follows people throughout their lives. Schools are also very effective at training compliance. Sit in the right seat, do the right assignments, follow the curriculum, stay on the path. Those who think or act differently are often labeled as difficult, distracted, or not a good fit. Yet in the real world, value creation and wealth often come from people who are willing to take a different path. When difference is not nurtured, enormous potential is suppressed from the very beginning. One thing that is almost entirely missing from formal education is financial thinking. Students study a great deal of math, but rarely learn how to manage money, how to generate income, or how to make money work for them. They learn how to solve equations, but not how to solve life's financial problems. By the time they graduate, many hold degrees but remain completely unaware of how money actually works and are forced to learn costly lessons through real life. Schools also reinforce the belief that the right path is to study hard, graduate, secure a stable job, and stay there long term. Stability is celebrated as the ultimate goal, while other paths, entrepreneurship, creativity, independent careers, are often portrayed as risky or unreliable. The unspoken message is clear. Safety matters more than freedom, and avoiding risk matters more than exploring one's potential. When an education system is designed primarily to produce suitable workers rather than creators of new value, a poor mindset does not need to be taught directly. It forms naturally through invisible limits. Don't be different, don't be wrong, don't dream too much. And when these messages meet the beliefs planted at home, they merge into a very durable way of thinking, one that leaves many people growing up with the feeling that they should only walk the path that has already been laid out for them. But school is not the final stage. When people leave the classroom and step into society, these mindsets are not broken. They are reinforced even more strongly by the majority, by the media, and by invisible social norms that define what is considered normal. And it is there that the poor mindset reaches its most complete form. After leaving the family and the school system, many people believe that society will be the place where they are finally free, free to think differently, act differently, and choose their own path. Ironically, society often becomes the final layer that reinforces a poor mindset most powerfully, not through commands, but through invisible pressure from the majority. Society celebrates safety. Those with stable jobs, predictable incomes, and calm, uneventful lives are commonly labeled as successful. In contrast, people who choose different paths, especially entrepreneurship, creative work, or independent careers, are easily branded as risky, reckless, or even unrealistic. When you fail, society rarely asks what you learned, it judges you instead. Over time, the fear of judgment becomes an invisible rope pulling people back into the comfort zone. Another powerful factor is how society views failure. Failure is often seen as proof of incompetence rather than a natural part of growth. Those who fail are scrutinized, talked about, and compared. In such an environment, very few people dare to try seriously. Many choose to do nothing at all because, in the eyes of society, not trying can feel safer than trying and being wrong. Media and social platforms also quietly nurture a poor mindset. On one hand, they constantly display images of wealth and overnight success, making many people feel inferior. On the other hand, they rarely show the long, messy process of persistence and mistakes behind that success. The result is predictable. People either drift into unrealistic fantasies or fall into deep pessimism. Neither leads to consistent action. the only thing capable of truly changing a life. Society also creates an unspoken standard that knowing your place is wise. Those who aim too high or try to rise beyond familiar limits are often labeled as overly ambitious, impractical, or never satisfied. These seemingly casual remarks, repeated over time, cause many people to quietly shrink their dreams in order to blend in. And when the majority accepts a life that is merely enough, wanting more can begin to feel almost wrong. When all three layers of programming, family, school, and society point towards the same message, safety over growth, stability over exploration, the poor mindset stops being a personal choice and becomes normal. Many people are not lazy or lacking willpower, they are simply living in alignment with what they were taught was reasonable. But one thing is essential to remember. Anything that is programmed can be reprogrammed. Society may teach you how to survive, but it does not have the right to decide how far you can grow. And the moment you become aware of these invisible influences is the moment you begin to reclaim the right to choose your own mindset. That awareness is the first step out of a mold that many people never dare to leave. Once you understand that a poor mindset is not something you consciously chose, but something programmed through family, school, and society, a natural question arises. So, how do you break free? The answer does not begin with money, nor does it begin with some big opportunity. It begins with something very small, yet powerful enough to change the entire direction of your life, the questions you ask yourself every day. A poor mindset tends to ask, how can I make money faster? How can I suffer less? How can I avoid losing? These questions sound practical, but they lock the mind into scarcity. They force you to focus on immediate outcomes rather than long-term capability. And when your questions revolve only around money, you remain limited by the money you do not yet have. A rich mindset asks a different question. How can I create value? When you shift the question from money to value, your perspective changes completely. You begin thinking about solving problems, improving other people's lives, and becoming more useful. In this case, money is no longer the goal, it is the consequence. The more value you create, the more naturally and sustainably money flows towards you. Another critical shift happens in the questions you ask yourself when facing difficulty. A poor mindset says, I can't, I don't have the ability, this isn't for me. These statements shut down effort before it even begins. A rich mindset asks, what do I need to learn to make this work? Who has done this before, and what can I learn from them? The right question does not remove the challenge, but it opens a path through it. A major turning point comes when you replace the question, how do I stay safe, with how do I become skilled enough that risk no longer scares me? A poor mindset tries to avoid risk by staying still. A rich mindset reduces risk by increasing capability. They learn more, run small experiments, fail early, and adjust quickly. Instead of waiting for the world to become safe, they make themselves stronger in a world that is always changing. When you begin changing your questions, you realize something essential. Being rich is not just about having more money. Being rich means having the ability to create money in many different situations. It means having a mindset of continuous learning rather than relying on a single path. And it means having choice, the choice to learn more, to do things differently, to step off the familiar road. Every major transformation in a person's life begins with a very small shift in thinking, not with answers, but with questions. When you change the question, you change your perspective. When your perspective changes, your actions follow. And when your actions change long enough, your life, sooner or later, can no longer remain the same. If a poor mindset has been formed over many years, breaking free from it cannot happen overnight. But that does not mean the process is vague or out of reach. On the contrary, The journey begins with one very concrete, very practical, and very difficult step: recognizing the beliefs that are quietly limiting you. Most of us do not act based on reality itself, but on what we believe reality to be. Those beliefs are not always true, but because they have existed for so long, they become facts in our minds. You may not notice it, but every time you say, "I'm not cut out for business," "I'm not good at making money," or "I was just born unlucky," you are unconsciously repeating an old program, one written by circumstances, not by your true potential. The first step out of a poor mindset is to pause and observe those statements. No judgment, no denial, simply awareness. Pay attention to what appears first in your mind when a new opportunity shows up. Is it curiosity or a list of reasons why you shouldn't try? When you think about money, do you feel excitement or tension and anxiety? These automatic reactions are the clearest fingerprints of the mindset you are carrying. Once you recognize them, begin asking different questions. Where did this belief come from? Is it based on your own experience or something you heard repeated by others? Is it true in every situation, or was it only true during a certain period of your life? And most importantly, is this belief helping you move forward or keeping you stuck? Many people are afraid to confront limiting beliefs because they think letting go of them will leave them lost. But the truth is the opposite. Only when you clearly see the invisible strings holding you back do you have a chance to untie them. Recognition is not about self-blame, it is about reclaiming choice, the choice of which beliefs to keep and which ones to replace with a way of thinking that better fits the person you want to become. This first step will not make you rich overnight, but it does something far more important. It stops you from being poor unconsciously. And once you are no longer living on autopilot, every step you take from that point on begins to have intention. Once you have identified the beliefs that are holding you back, the next question is, what do you replace them with? Because if you remove old patterns of thinking without building new ones, it is very easy to fall back into familiar ruts. That is why the second step is not directly about money, but the thing that creates money over the long term, investing in your mindset before investing in your finances. Many people wait until they have money before they think about learning. People with a wealth-oriented mindset do the opposite. They learn in order to develop the ability to create money in many different circumstances. They understand that money can be lost, jobs can change, but the right way of thinking stays with you for life. That is why they are willing to invest time, effort, and even money early on to upgrade the way they think. Investing in your mindset does not require expensive courses or dramatic decisions. It begins with what you choose to listen to each day, what you read before going to sleep, and the kinds of conversations you spend your time in. The right book at the right moment, a podcast that speaks directly to your situation, or a mentor who has walked the path before you can change how you see the world far faster than trying to earn a little more money while thinking the same old way. One extremely important factor in this step is your environment. It is very difficult to build a wealth-oriented mindset in an environment that revolves around hardship, complaints, and fear. Not because the people around you are bad, but because thinking is contagious. When you are close to people who are always learning, always asking questions, and always focused on solutions rather than problems, the way you think begins to shift as well. The right environment can lift you up even before your self-discipline fully develops. Investing in your mindset also means learning to delay gratification. Instead of spending money to soothe short-term emotions, you learn to use your time and money to build long-term foundations. You learn to tolerate the feeling of no immediate results in exchange for real, gradual growth in your abilities. This is the stage where many people quit, not because it is too hard, but because it does not deliver instant feelings of success. Most importantly, when you invest in your mindset, you are sending yourself a powerful message: I am worth developing. That message slowly replaces a sense of scarcity with a sense of agency. You stop waiting for opportunities and start preparing yourself to be worthy of them when they appear. And from that moment on, escaping a poor mindset is no longer just a theory, it becomes a very real process unfolding in your everyday life. After recognizing your old mindset and seriously investing in building a new one, there remains a final barrier that many people fail to cross. It is not a lack of knowledge nor a lack of opportunity, but the inability to turn a new way of thinking into real-world action. That is why step 3, small but consistent action, is the point that determines whether you merely understand or truly escape. Many people carry the illusion that once their mindset changes enough, action will naturally follow. In reality, it often works the other way around. New actions are what force the mindset to deepen and solidify. If you only think differently, read more, listen more, but your daily life stays exactly the same, the brain will soon return to its old programming because it is familiar and requires less energy. Only when you act differently, even in very small ways, does the new mindset have space to really take root. Action here does not mean dramatic leaps or reckless decisions. It means very ordinary, practical things. Learning a skill that can generate income, setting aside a fixed amount of time each day to build competence, or trying something outside your comfort zone, even if it does not produce immediate money. To a poor mindset, these actions seem small and insignificant, but it is precisely the consistency of these small actions that creates real change over time. A critical element of this step is accepting uncertainty. When you start doing something new, you will not be good at it, not fast, and not recognized right away. A poor mindset deeply resists this feeling because it triggers old fears: fear of being wrong, fear of losing, fear of being judged. But a wealth-oriented mindset understands this. Initial discomfort is a sign that real learning is happening. If everything feels easy, chances are you are still operating inside your old comfort zone. Small, consistent action also helps you build something extremely important: internal evidence. Each time you complete a task, no matter how small, your brain records that you are someone who follows through on what you say. Confidence does not come from positive affirmations, it comes from real experience. And as enough evidence accumulates, the phrase, "I can't," gradually loses its power. Another common mistake is waiting for motivation before acting, but motivation comes after the first results, not before action. If you wait until you feel inspired or fully determined, you will remain stuck. People who escape a poor mindset learn to act even without enthusiasm. They treat action as a commitment to themselves, not as a temporary emotional response. Equally important is learning to experiment rather than gamble. Escaping a poor mindset does not require you to abandon everything to pursue a single path. On the contrary, it encourages you to start small, fail quickly, and adjust early. Each experiment is a lesson. Each lesson helps you understand yourself, the market, and how value is truly created. When you become familiar with the cycle of trying, failing, and learning, fear of risk decreases significantly. Ultimately, consistent action produces a deep internal shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to escape poverty and begin to see yourself as someone who is growing. When identity changes, behavior follows. And when behavior changes long enough, financial results become a matter of time. Step 3 is not glamorous, dramatic, or instantly rewarding, but it is the bridge between mindset and real life. Without this bridge, all understanding remains trapped in your head. When you step onto that bridge every day, even slowly, you are moving away from a poor mindset, not through hope, but through your own actions. If you have made it this far, you have likely realized something essential. Poverty is not a sentence written by circumstances, family background, or where you started. Poverty only becomes a destiny when you choose to hold on to an old way of thinking. Money can come and go, jobs can change, but the way you think determines how quickly you stand back up after every setback. You are not poor because you were born without money. You are only poor when you believe you have no choice but to live within familiar limits. When your mindset changes, your actions change. When your actions change long enough, your results are forced to change as well. This is not a slogan, it is a principle. Ask yourself one honest question. If you lost all your money tomorrow, what would still remain within you? What skills do you have? Do you have the ability to learn again, rebuild, and create value in a new situation? The answer to that question is the line between temporary financial struggle and a poor mindset. If you truly want to escape poverty, do not start by asking how to make more money. Start by changing the way you think, the questions you ask, and the small actions you take each day. Money follows mindset. It never comes before it. In the next video, we will explore a familiar but uncomfortable paradox. Why do poor people prefer cheap products yet end up spending more than the rich? This is not just a story about spending habits, but about how short-term and long-term thinking quietly shape our financial lives. If you are on a journey to upgrade your mindset and improve your language skills, don't forget to follow Think and Speak English. Here, we don't just learn English, we learn to think more deeply, more clearly, and live more intentionally in a constantly changing world. I'll see you in the next video.